Welcome, everybody. If you are tuning in when we've dropped this session on the September 27th during our Sunstone UK digital conference, or you are clicking back through to watch later, we want to welcome you. This is our pre-recorded session with René Steelman. She is speaking about women's search for purpose beyond motherhood and caregiving. I feel so lucky that we have René here. She's an absolute powerhouse, an icon, a legend. I cannot say enough good things about René. I'm so excited to hear from her today. She's going to speak to us about finding purpose for women. Let me introduce her a little bit, and then I'll give her the floor. I want to remind you that you're here for Sunstone. This is a digital conference, but we are providing this content for free. So if you have the means, please go to sunstone.org and make a donation if you appreciate our work. We want to make it available and as accessible as possible, and we can only do that with donations. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and introduce René, and then René, I'll hand the floor over to you. So like I said, René Steelman is speaking about women's search for purpose beyond motherhood and caregiving. René was a professional interior designer and instructor until she and her husband retired. She's now an influencer, podcast host, and former member of the Mormon Church. She's been married to her TBM husband for 50 years. They're the parents of 6 children and grandparents of 14. René loves Arizona, USA, where being outside is mandatory since leaving the UK, like the Pacific Northwest. René is a fitness competitor and will challenge anyone to a bicep competition. Next time we've got in-person Sunstone in the UK, I am taking you up on that. I will lose, but I'll have a great time. So bicep competitions with René, next in-person conference. I'm putting it on the schedule. All right, René, it's all yours. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you so much, Grace. It's such an honor to be speaking at Sunstone, and I'm bummed that we can't do it in person. I was looking forward to, a tour of all of England, and especially I was excited to meet up with Jane. We were going to head to Scotland as well, and Peter and Nemo and all of the other Brit Vengers. But this is just as great because it's the message that's really important. So today we're going to be talking about the purpose beyond motherhood and caregiving. We're going to explore a story that is too often ignored, one that affects countless women, especially those who have spent decades caring for their families, supporting their husbands, and raising their children. These women, after years of self-sacrifice, find themselves at a crossroads. Once the children have grown and their husbands retire, for the first time, they have the space to ask, what about me? These women often feel a deep desire to reclaim the interests, talents, and dreams they have set aside for the sake of their families. But when they seek to redefine themselves, they are often met with resistance. Husbands may find it difficult to understand why their wives want more. Children may expect their mothers to continue caregiving roles, this time for grandchildren. And in many conservative Christian communities, religious teachings reinforce the belief that a woman's role is to be a caregiver, nurturer, and wife, nothing more. Many women of previous generations were raised to believe that their highest calling was to be a wife and mother. They were encouraged to leave behind personal aspirations in favor of supporting their husbands and raising their children. Their dreams, their identities, and their potential were often sacrificed for the well-being of the family. One woman I spoke to shared a familiar story. When her husband retired, she wanted to explore new hobbies, maybe even go back to school, but her husband couldn't understand it. He saw her as a homemaker, and that was enough for him. Her children, now raising their own families, expected her to step seamlessly into the role of full-time grandmother. When she expressed her desire to do something for herself, her family responded with confusion, saying, "Why change now?" This resistance isn't just coming from the family. It's often reinforced by religious teachings and political rhetoric. In conservative Christian circles, the message is clear. A woman's highest calling is to serve her family. Women are often taught that their value lies in their role as caregivers and nurturers. In Mormon circles, figures like Ezra Taft Benson have long argued that if you get married, You have accepted the headship of a man, your husband, emphasizing that a woman's identity is tied to her service to her husband and family. Similarly, J.D. Vance, a conservative political figure, has argued that a woman's fulfillment comes from being a mother and a homemaker, and that when women seek roles outside of the home, it threatens the family unit. In these views, the idea of a woman seeking fulfillment outside of caregiving is not only discouraged, it's seen as a threat to the very fabric of society. These traditional roles are often imbued with political and religious meaning, creating a narrative in which a woman's only purpose is to serve others, and where stepping outside of that role is seen as betrayal. For many women, their church plays a central role in shaping their understanding of what it means to be a woman, a wife, and a mother. In some religious traditions, that has meant a reduction in the roles that women are encouraged to occupy. In Latter-day Saint history, the evolution of women's roles within the church is complex. In the early days of the church, women like Emma Smith held significant positions of leadership and authority. Emma, as the first president of the Relief Society, a women's organization within the church, held a powerful role. Historian Amanda Hendricks Komodo reflects on Emma's position, saying, "When I first encountered Emma Smith's story as a graduate student studying American religious history, the image of her assuming the leadership of the Relief Society was powerful. As a mother in Israel, Emma cared for impoverished women, blessed the bodies of pregnant women, and anointed the sick. Even within my own religious upbringing as a white Protestant, I rarely encountered examples of female spirituality that included such a robust vision of how God might use women to heal people." However, over time, the church's view of motherhood became more limited. The idea of a mother in Israel, once a title signifying leadership and spiritual power, was reduced to the role of motherhood itself. As Hendricks Komodo explains, this term became flattened, focusing more on a woman's role as a mother and less on her capacity for spiritual leadership. In 1992, feminist scholar Maxine Hanks argued in Mormon Women and Authority that Emma Smith had received a portion of the keys of the kingdom during the rituals that accompanied her appointment as Relief Society president. This language echoed the Mormon idea of the restoration, where Joseph Smith and other men received the keys of the priesthood, allowing them to perform important rituals and receive divine revelation. According to Hanks, early Mormon women saw themselves as priestesses. The Women's Relief Society, Hanks writes, was a benevolent society as well as a self-governing kingdom of priestesses. These early examples of women's leadership within the Latter-day Saint Church offer a powerful vision of what women could be: leaders, healers, and spiritual authorities. Yet over time, these roles were diminished. 2 decades after Hanks's article, another Latter-day Saint feminist argued that Joseph Smith had reimagined the nature of God to include a female deity, creating an alternative view in which God was plural and included a heavenly mother and heavenly father. According to this scholar, Joseph Smith had organized the priesthood after the heavenly family, with women as queens and priestesses of the Most High God, alongside men who were kings and priests. This vision provided a theological framework that celebrated both male and female attributes of divinity. However, these feminist interpretations were not embraced by the church. After Hanks published her work, she and several other scholars were excommunicated from the church in a wave of expulsions known as the September 6. These actions silenced many Mormon feminists, making it clear that alternative interpretations of women's roles within the church would not be tolerated. Women who dared to suggest that their identity could encompass more than motherhood or that spiritual leadership was equally available to them found themselves sidelined or punished. This backlash mirrors broader societal resistance to women stepping outside traditional roles of caregiving, particularly in the workforce. Consider if you have tried to work and be a homemaker, how deeply these traditional roles are ingrained. As Christine Benz points out in her book, How to Retire, she interviews Jean Chatzky. She asks Jean, when you look at the data about women's college graduation rates and earnings in their first job, women are crushing it. So why is it that there are persistent gender wage gaps? I blame childcare because the last time I looked at the numbers, for every 100 men who graduated college, 132 women graduated. We're crushing it, as you said, when it comes to graduate degrees as well. Starting salaries are more level than they used to be. They're still not completely level. For example, there are some studies that have looked at whether young women doctors earn as much as young men, and often they don't. Benz highlights the underlying issue, childcare. Women may start out on an even playing field with men in terms of education and entry-level salaries, but the gap begins to widen as family responsibilities come into play. We come out of college, we look down the road, we see that we are likely going to be the caretakers for children. As a result, many women opt for lower paying or part-time careers that offer more flexibility, sacrificing long-term earnings for the sake of family care. This societal expectation that women will bear the bulk of caregiving responsibilities extends beyond the home and into professional life, reinforcing the wage gap and limiting women's opportunities for advancement. Thus, whether in the church, at home, or in the workplace, women continue to face immense pressure to remain in caregiving roles. But as more women seek to reclaim their identities and explore their potential beyond motherhood and caregiving, it's time to challenge these long-standing expectations and create space for women to define their lives on their own terms. Jean Chatzky highlights 3 key challenges women face when it comes to retirement. First, she points to the persistent gender wage gap, stating, women earn less over the course of their careers in most cases, often substantially less. This gap means that women have less income to save, invest, and contribute toward their retirement. Over a lifetime, the compounding effect of lower wages means that women may enter retirement with significantly less financial security. The second challenge Chatzky identifies is that women often take breaks from work to care for children or aging parents. She explains, we also are usually the ones who take breaks from work to care for kids and older parents. That means we lose Social Security credits. We also lose contributions to our retirement accounts. These caregiving responsibilities not only interrupt a woman's career, but they also prevent her from accumulating vital financial assets, such as retirement savings and Social Security benefits. These gaps, combined with the wage gap, make it even more difficult for women to save enough for a secure retirement. Continuing from Christine Benz's point about the value of staying in the workforce, Chatzky's insights further stress that when women step away from their careers, they sacrifice more than just immediate income. They lose long-term financial growth opportunities. As Benz and Chatzky both suggest, maintaining one's career, even in the face of caregiving demands, can provide greater long-term security, allowing women to face retirement with greater financial independence and stability. As Jean Chatzky points out, women face the challenge of making their money last longer in retirement because, on average, they tend to outlive their spouses by about 5 years. She explains. Finally, we need to make our money last longer because we're outliving our spouses by about a half a decade on average. It's not as if we necessarily need different investments, but the challenge is to save enough and invest it aggressively enough or wisely enough to get us to a level that can sustain us through our lives. This reality adds yet another layer of complexity to women's retirement planning. It's not just about saving enough, but ensuring those savings can last longer than they might for men. Women must plan for a longer retirement, often managing their finances solo in the later years. This requires a combination of saving more during their working years, making wise investment decisions, and ensuring that their retirement income can stretch for potentially several decades. Having the courage to say no to these deeply ingrained expectations is not easy, and it is often met with resistance. Whether it's stepping away from family caregiving responsibilities or resisting societal pressures to continue in a role that no longer fits, choosing a new path can feel isolating and unacceptable to those around us. For many women, taking time away from work to care for children or aging parents may seem like the right decision in the moment, but it can have serious long-term consequences. By stepping away from their careers, women lose out on more than just a paycheck. They miss out on retirement savings, career advancement, and professional connections. This creates a compounded effect that becomes harder to overcome with time, and as the ability to catch up diminishes. Ben suggests an alternative approach for women who find themselves in the role of caregiver for aging parents. Rather than stepping back from work, she argues that hiring a paid caregiver may be a better option, even if it consumes much of the money the woman earns. She writes, there are a lot of daughters who want to take a step back from work to care for their parents. I think that often the better move is hiring a paid caregiver, even if it costs all the money you make. Continuing to work is for the greater good, knowing that this is a temporary situation. Maybe you'll take a short-term leave at some point and then another. By continuing to work, even in the face of temporary caregiving challenges, women can maintain their financial independence and ensure their long-term security. This strategy recognizes that the decision to leave the workforce has lasting consequences, and that staying professionally engaged despite the short-term sacrifices can be crucial for a woman's financial future. With no work experience or retirement security, divorce is a huge challenge. It's a huge life challenge. 1 in 5 women who divorce fall into poverty. Men tend to do better coming out of a divorce. In some cases, women might not be able to earn enough while also caring for kids. Single women are among the fastest growing segments of the population, and they have their own challenges because it's hard in this day and age, especially if you have children. As women navigate these challenging decisions, it is essential to prioritize their own well-being and long-term goals. Having the courage to say no to the expectations that they must always be available as caregivers, and instead advocating for their own professional and personal growth, is not just a matter of self-care. It's a vital step toward reclaiming their identities and securing their futures. Don't wait until you're a widow to claim your identity. As women, and especially as Mormon women, you don't need to wait for benevolent power or permission to step into your own life and reclaim your sense of self. Too often, women are told that their highest calling is to serve others, to care for children, support their husbands, or even later in life to serve missions that can drain both finances and personal time. These responsibilities are valuable, but they are not your only purpose. You have the right to say no. You can choose to pursue your dreams, passions, and long suppressed talents without guilt. Saying no to another calling that demands your time, energy, and mindfulness doesn't make you selfish, it makes you wise. Your life, your fulfillment, and your joy matter just as much as the service you provide to others. It's time to reimagine what it means to live a full life, one where caregiving and sacrifice are part of your legacy, but not the entirety of your existence. By stepping into your own identity now, you give yourself permission to explore, grow, and live fully, not just as a mother or a caregiver, but as a woman with her own dreams and a future she can shape. So today I'm giving you the job of becoming visible. Thanks.